Okay, so this is what we're going to be building. This is the Netflix application. So if we scroll down, you can see it's pretty much the Netflix homepage. And we're not just going to be skinning the homepage. What we're going to be doing, we're going to be using React Router, so we can have like a sign in, a sign up. And you can see we have different components. And if we sign in, you'll get the same Netflix experience. So it'll ask who's watching. I click on my profile, and as you can see, we have a Netflix homepage. And what we see here is a bunch of series, and if we switch to films, it gives us the films. We can switch back to series, and then we have a search up here. Now, if we use this search right here, we can search for, say, Family Guy, and it will filter down, and we can see which one we have chosen. So if I click on like Family Guy, or South Park, or Arrested Development, or The Office, or let's search for a film. So let's say The Prestige. Let's see, we'll click off The Office, we'll click on Films, search for The Prestige. Somewhere here it is. Now this is using Fuse.js, and it's a nice little module that allows us to live search an array, which is cool. And you can see, yeah, we have a fairly nice looking browse page, which is near enough identical as to what you see on Netflix.com. So the next thing I want to show you is, well, we have to speak about a bit more about the technologies we're going to be using. I'll do that as a quick overview. Actually, you know what, let's just talk about it now. We're going to be using React, we're going to be using React Router, style components, and we're going to be using a design pattern that you may have come across in React called compound components. In addition to those technologies, we're going to be looking at Firebase, and if you're not familiar with Firebase, don't worry, because I'm going to be going over Firebase. There's not that much initial setup as apart from basically the config that Firebase give you. And we're going to be creating some nice cool hooks, custom hooks, so authentication, pulling data, and that's going to be the overview of Firebase in terms of what we're going to be using it for. And lastly, I just want to quickly show you here the sign out. So we've got full authentication. If you try go to the browse page, you'll just get redirected here. So that's authentication within React Router. So yeah, we're going to be looking at React, compound components, style components, and then Firebase. So you will need to get set up with Firebase, and I'll walk you through that. That's fine. In terms of, let's figure this out, we need to look at application architecture because this is a fairly big application. So let's jump into that now. So just before we look at the architecture, let's just take one more quick view as to what we'll be building. So we've seen the home page. I wanted to show you this because we're going to be building a bunch of different components. This is going to be an accordion component where you can click it and it moves down and moves up. So that's going to be pretty cool. We're going to learn how to build an accordion. Then we're going to be doing the sign in, which is a component itself. The sign up, which is going to utilize that component. And then you get the browse page, which is nice. Then it works mobile responsively, so that's on a tablet. Likewise, when you open up a feature, you're going to be able to have that responsively. And we're going to be able to play videos. So here it is. When you click play, we're just going to have a nice video playing. Feel free to bring your own videos and drop them in the public/videos folder, which we will be looking at shortly. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I can't wait to get into this, but quickly let's look at the architecture because I feel like that will really help because, like I said, it's a really big application that we're going to be building. So there we are. Let's take a look at the architecture. So let's take a look at the architecture. So first things first is, a lot of people always ask me when I'm doing tutorials, how do you come about the structure of your folders and how do you conclude on where you want to place files? Well, it's not something that is set in stone for me. Basically, I will create folders that I feel are necessary to hold a bunch of files, same as you would do on Windows or a Mac. You know, if I have, well, generally mine are really bad, I'll name folders like stuff or things to do, and then I just shove stuff in there. But in this case, like, it's kind of self-explanatory. We have hooks, pages, utils, fixtures, helpers, lib, components, containers, context, and constants. And then on the left side, we have public, images, and videos. So we have this huge bar at the top, this yellow one called source, src. Everything below is going to live in there. Likewise with public, everything below, including images and videos, just being those two, live in public. And that's going to be pretty much it. We're going to have our components, containers, context, constants, hooks, pages, utils, fixtures. And I feel like this splits it up nicely, so I'm going to be going with this structure. You know, it could be subject to change, but let's see. I think this is at least 99% there. And this is going to be the structure of our components. Just as an example, we have components, and in this case we have card. So all the other ones that don't have a yellow background, let's just ignore those for now and let's focus on card. So within card, we have a styles folder, we have an index.js, which is going to be our component, and then we have a card.js. Now we only have one file in the styles folder, and that's fine. The reason I created a styles folder in this case is simply because if people want to come and add additional styles, they can do it in the styles folder. I don't really want people modifying what I've already built in the compound components unless it's absolutely necessary. And if they choose to go edit that file, that's completely fine. But if they're making certain modifications or extending this out, you know, giving it more functionality, I would prefer them to add it in a separate file, because these files already are fairly large. So I think, you know, it's nice to have a styles folder. You don't have to have a styles folder, but if you're following on with this tutorial, I would recommend it. And this is how the application is going to work. We have a user. The user is going to hit the application, which is going to be the front end application, and that's going to be connected to Firebase. That Firebase application is going to go ahead and, well, when it loads up, it's going to say, Firebase, can I have the data? Now initially it's not going to do that. I mean, we can make it do that if we wish, and maybe we will do that. But what we want to do is we want to call Firebase when a user either signs in, signs out, signs up, or is on the browse page. The browse page being where you look at the films and series. And when you get to that page, we want to hydrate the application with all the data that we have in our Firestore. So that's it. That's the application architecture. Next, let's look at some of the dependencies that we're going to be using in the code. We've seen the application, but let's look at some of the dependencies, and we'll do that right now. So these are the dependencies. There's not too many. I just thought it would be a good idea to just walk through each particular one. We're going to start out with having React Testing Library as a dependency, and as a matter of fact, you can move that into dev dependencies, because actually let's talk about that. Dev dependencies. There we go. Yep. What's this saying? Duplicate object. Where is that? Oh, here we go. Okay. So we can just steal that, get rid of this, come down to dev dependencies. I'm just going to put it in here. Where should I put it? Put it there. Okay, so anyhow, reason I put the testing library React in the dev dependencies is because when the final bundle runs, I want it to pull the modules from the dependencies. I don't want it from the dev dependencies, because I'm only pretty much using React Testing Library as a developer to make sure my code works. And we'll be doing testing, so that's going to be good. Anyhow, dependencies, we're going to have Firebase, Fuse.js, and that's going to allow us to do the live search. Normalize CSS, so that's going to be a CSS reset, which would be really helpful. You don't have to use this, but I always recommend resetting your CSS prior to starting any project. We'll be using React, of course, React DOM, React Router, React Scripts, and Style Components. So the main ones you got to worry about is React, Style Components, and Firebase. That's pretty much it. So that's going to be the packages that we're going to be using. Next, I think it's probably time we started working on some components. but we need to install some sort of framework to get this going. So let's start with let's go ahead and install Create React App. So let's do that now. Okay, so I've opened a terminal here. I'm using ZSH on my Mac. If you're on Windows, you can look at using PowerShell, or even I think it's Git Bash it's called. I think you can use that. We're going to be using Yarn for this. Now you can use npm and you can switch in and out, so don't worry too much if you're using npm and I'm using Yarn. It's pretty much going to be the same. We're going to be using Create React App as I previously mentioned. So to get started, we're just going to say Yarn Create React App, and I'm going to call this Netflix. So before I hit this, you can use npm for this. Head over to Create React App on GitHub. There's an npm command. You can run this. By the way, where it says code on the left, that's just a folder that I've called code, and I hold most of my projects in there. Feel free to install this anywhere, but pick an appropriate name. Netflix seems reasonable for this because that's what we're going to be rebuilding. Then hit enter, and then let Yarn do its thing. It's going to fetch the packages, it's going to install all this stuff, and then once this is done, what we're going to do, we're going to open this up in VS Code. I do have a video on my VS Code setup, so feel free to check that out. More than likely I'll do a new one shortly because I tend to change it so much, but this is just installing all the packages that we need. So I do prefer Yarn. If you're using npm, you know, that's fine. At my workplace we use npm, but I just seem to enjoy using Yarn more. I'm more affiliated with the commands than I am with npm at this particular point. And is this done yet? Yarn remove? Come on, hurry up. Alright, let's see. I don't really want to cut the video because then if people happen to, I don't know. Here we are. So as it says here, we suggest you begin by typing cd Netflix. Okay, your wish is my command. And then it gives me all the files and folders in here. That's something I've already got set up. You may not see this. If you don't see this, click ls and you'll get something similar. Basically what it did ls.la, which is just going to list stuff out, but let's just set ls. So we have node modules, public, yarn.lock. You may not have that if you used npm. You'll have npm lock file instead. And now pretty much what we're going to do is I'm just going to type C, and that's going to open up a code editor for me. So if I hit C, it's going to go ahead, open this up. I'll full screen this and we can start getting to work. No, start with a pop-up. First things first, so when I install Create React App, generally what I do, I start by removing and editing things. So I'm going to get rid of the README, we don't need that. Let's see what we need here. We'll get rid of the logo, we don't need that. Get rid of the service worker, get rid of the setup tests, index.css, yeah, we don't need that. App.test, we don't need you. App.css, you can go also. Public, let's get rid of the logos. Manifest, robots.txt, no thank you. Favicon, no, you're good. And then in public, go ahead, create 2 new folders, images, videos. Now, I don't want to dwell on you adding images and videos in here, so if you just head over to my GitHub now, there's a link on the screen, it's also in the description. Download this particular repo and then just take out the images and videos and copy and paste them in here. So you can either overwrite the images and videos folder, or what you can do is I don't know, copy them individually, whatever you want to do. But you need the images and videos there because we want them to display when we're creating certain components, and it's a real pain. I created these all in Photoshop in terms of cropping them and everything else, and I don't want you to have to do all that because it took me a few hours. So go ahead and do that. I'll let you do that now and be back shortly. Okay, so now you've got the images and videos, we can go into the index.html. Let's just clean this up a bit. Hopefully everyone can see this. If not, do zoom in. I'm going to get rid of the link, the manifest, the comment. We can change the title to Netflix. What's this? Description, we don't need that. We don't need the theme color. We're going to keep the viewport that allows us to do the scaling when it comes to responsiveness. Favicon you can keep. If you went onto the GitHub, you would have seen that there's a favicon.ico, and I've put the Netflix one in there. Div-ID root, we need that because that's where React is going to inject our code that we build. So that looks fairly clean to me. Once that's done, let's have a look. This is more personal preference, I guess, but I'm just going to rename this here app.js to app. Well, just app, lowercase app.js. So make sure you do that, and then once you've done that, I'm going to clean this up in here. I'm going to remove the app.css because that doesn't exist, nor does the logo. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the logo. Basically going to get rid of everything in here, and then we'll just put hello for now. Okay, that looks good. Move that, zoom in, and see here where it's export default app. I don't really like doing this too much, so I generally delete that, and then I come up here and say export default, and it's just a bit cleaner in my opinion. Feel free to go ahead and do as you wish. You can have the export lower down. I'll save this. One more modification in index.js. We need to get rid of index.css. And even though I just lowercase this, you can still import it as a default with app from app. We can just get rid of that, put app there. We don't need the service worker. We're going to take off strict mode. We don't need that. Let's see, we'll just put that here. Let's put that onto one line. We don't want the service worker, so we'll get rid of that, and your file should look something like this. Also, another tip that you can basically use here is with React DOM, you can either say give me the default, or you can remove this and just get render. So I'm just pulling out render, and I'm just going to say render this. I don't know, I quite like that, it's much nicer. So yeah, we get the default here, that's fine. And generally speaking, when I do this, normally I mess up, and I've either done that somehow. No, I think we're good. I think we're good so far. So what I want to do next is open up a terminal. I've just hit Command T. Command T in VS Code gives you a terminal. And do you remember we looked at the packages? And there was a few that we needed. So we needed Firebase, Fuse.js, Normalize. What else did we need? Style components. So we can say yarn add styled components, and hopefully you can see that yarn add style components. So I'm going to hit enter. That's going to add style components. Let's see what else we got here. So that's going to install, and you'll see your package.json change. Now this has to go in the dependencies and not dev dependencies, because it's a dependency that we need for our application. So are we done? Are we done? Yes, we're done. So I'll clean that. Command K if you're on a Mac. I'm not too sure what that is on Windows. And then I'm going to say yarn add Firebase, and I believe that should give us Firebase. If not, we can always go and look at the module or the package, depending on what people call it. So style components has come in. That's good. Let's see what we get for Firebase. I think the Firebase version was 7.19.1. So if that comes in at 17.9.1, I know we're good. And also, for people who want to be able to open up the terminal, I think it's Command T. I have turned on the Command T toggle. And again, I'll leave that in the description so you can look at my settings for VS Code. I know people are going to ask me what theme this is. I'm not too sure. It's in the description probably. There we are, Firebase. Good. 17.91. Okay, so next, this one I'm just going to take a shot at. I think it's Fuse.js, like that. And if it comes in at 6.41, I know it's that particular one, because I've been working on Fuse on the Netflix application you see here, but I can't remember the name as to what it was. But by the way, don't guess like I do. Just search your stuff and it'll tell you how to install it. I think we're good. I think what we're going to start out with is just building a component and showing you how compound components work. Fuse 6.41, perfect. Lastly, let's add normalize. So this is a tricky one. Let's see if this one comes in at 8.01. If not, we'll have to Google it, that's fine. I'm going to keep this video as raw as possible. I'm not going to take out any errors or anything like that, so you may be here a while. Go grab a cup of tea, coffee, follow along, and yeah, just enjoy it. There's going to be a lot to learn, and if you are a junior developer, what did that come in at? Yeah, that looks good. Normalize is good. So anyhow, yeah, if you're a junior developer, mid developer, is that the word, or midway? Who knows? I don't really like titles, but if you're just learning stuff like this to you know, kill some time, fair play. But yeah, I think we've got all the dependencies we need. Lastly, actually, we can. Should we install Create React App? Not Create React App. What we're gonna do? No, let's leave testing till the end. I don't want to. Testing library. Oh, it comes in already. So I wonder why this comes in as a dependency. We can take a look at that later. So it's weird. With Create React App, it must be tree shaking this, and by tree shaking, it's saying, even though it's a dependency, I don't want this. But it's strange that the testing library for React testing library is coming in as a dependency. That's weird. Nevertheless, we can look at testing later on. We're going to be here a few hours. So let's get going. Let's do yarn start. npm, I think it's npm start. Let's see what we're going to get. There's already one running on another part. So if you get this, that's fine. I forgot to kill the other one. So I'm just going to click no, and when I was doing the demonstration, so I'm just going to say, okay, what's running on this 3000? 3000 is 7603. Okay, well, guess what? I don't want you anymore. You can go. Yarn start. And then it should be like, boom, come on. Give us it. Here we are, we're starting. It's starting. And also, one thing I found with this particular course and just tutorials I've done before is check this console here that you don't have errors, but also if you're using Google Chrome, you want to check that console as well. So let's go ahead. I'll pull this over. It's opened it on another screen. Let's see. I think what we can potentially do is, let's open this full screen. As you see, it's working. We have hello, that's good. So we know it's working. We've done application architecture, and if we just like think about what we're going to be building, I want to build a Jumbotron. So a Jumbotron is essentially it's like the left and the right of what you see on the homepage of Netflix. And basically what it is, it's some marketing or saying, look, this is what we have as a product. We have these films, these series, we work on mobile, blah 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 blah. Now I just want to bring your attention to what it actually looks like. So if I just open up netflix.com, let's see. I hope, oh, it's going to take me into the browse. Okay, I'll have to blur this out. I don't really want to show all the Peppa Pig I've been watching. Let's see. Sign out. Yep, leaving soon. Come on. It's a bit slow. I'm not too sure. This is the Jumbotron. So this is what we're going to be building. And this is the FAQs. We're going to be building the up and down. So yeah, that's what we're going to be building. So let's take a look at the Jumbotron now. Quickly before we do the Jumbotron, one thing I do want to do is install React Router. So do yarn add React Router DOM. Hit enter and that'll install. Okay, so once that's installed, what I want you to do is I want you to open up Source. And within Source, create a folder called Fixtures. Now create two files. We're going to be using these files for not only the Jumbotron, but for FAQs too. And these are just going to be files that store data, so I'm going to call it jumbo.json. The next one is going to be called FAQs.json, and they'll make more sense in a second. Let's close down app, we can close down index, and we have Jumbo, nothing in there, right? Now I want you to head over to my GitHub page, which is github.com/KyleHadwin. Feel free to hit a follow, and I have these repos here pinned on my GitHub, and there's a bunch of other repos in here if you're interested in React and you're interested in JavaScript. Go into this one here what says Netflix, so click on that. And once you're in here, this is all the code that I spoke about. It's also in the description. That's what we're going to be building. My YouTube channel's there. Feel free to subscribe and click on source. Once you've clicked on source, go into fixtures. I'll zoom in even more here. So it's fixtures you want to go into, and then you have FAQs and Jumbotron. And let's take a look in Jumbo. So in Jumbo you have an array with 3 objects, and basically this is just saying a title, subtitle, image, alt, direction, and this is what we're going to be using for the home page. We're going to say this is our feature that we want to display to users who hit the home page. So I'm just going to jump back into here and just paste it in. You can type that if you wish, you can change it. We've basically got keys and we've got the value. So within JSON you have an array, and generally you have objects, and with the objects you have key values. So the key values are saying this is a title, I'm going to access this particular data by the title, and then that's going to be the value. Likewise with the one below it, and then the one below it. We jump back to FAQs. I'm just going to get this one as well. See, it saves us typing this out manually, so copy that, go into FAQs, hit save. Cool. So now we're done with that. We can open up the sidebar again. We have fixtures, FAQs, Jumbo. So what we're going to do next is we're going to start working in app.js, and we will eventually escape this, but right now I think it's good that we start working in this. And we're going to be using all sorts of stuff, so pages, containers, everything else, components. But right now we're going to create our first component and get used to using compound components. So in the source, create a new folder called components. So within components we're going to go ahead and create a new folder, and we're going to call it Jumbotron. And just be extra careful with the spelling, because I've misspelled this so many times. Once you've done that, we have to follow the architecture diagram, which you can see, right here. Actually, you know what? I have the architecture diagram right now. You see right there, we have Jumbotron, styles, index.js, and within styles we have Jumbo. We have Jumbotron.js. So let's go ahead within Jumbotron, create a new folder. We'll call this styles, and we're going to be doing this a lot. So we have Jumbo. Let's pull this out so you can see this, and we have styles. So within styles, be very careful again with the spelling, Jumbotron.js. Cool. So within Jumbotron, let's create an index.js, and that's going to be our component file right here. Pull that all the way back. Okay, so this is where it gets a bit hairy. So compound components, if you haven't seen it, I've got a video on these, and I really like this method. So as you can see here, the breadcrumb source components Jumbotron index.js, and I'm going to import React. So we have React, and then I'm just going to say export default function Jumbotron. I'm just going to copy that because I spell it wrong all the time, and I'm just going to put an empty object in there for now. What's this saying? Oh, default. So we have a Jumbotron, and we want to return I am the Jumbo. We can, you know what, let's just go ahead and get this. Let's go into here, and we can say import. So where we're going to import this from, we're going to say that import Jumbo. Should we say, call it Jumbotron? Yeah. From, let's see where we're at. We'll go up one level. We'll say components, Jumbotron, and you see I don't have to put the index.js because it's just smart enough to know that. Within the Jumbotron, let's just call that component, and let's see, close down this. I am the Jumbo. So there we are, we have the Jumbotron immediately. Perfect. just recalibrate where we're at. We inputted the Jumbotron from here, and we get this right here. Now, this is where, as I mentioned, it can get a bit hairy because I need to introduce you now to style components. So first things first, I'm going to set input styled from styled components / macro. Now, what the hell is macro? Macro is basically going to give us the name of the component in the DevTools. So as opposed to how it, I guess, basically works without any customizations, it will say, I don't know, 56942x blah 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 as a style name, but that makes no sense to me. So macro gives us the component name, and I'll demonstrate this shortly. So let's start out by saying export const inner, and I'm going to basically say this is a style component, by the way, equals style.div, and then you can pass any semantic element right here. You can put h1, h2, h3. You can pass whatever you like. You can even pass a section. It's pretty cool. And I'm going to say div and then give it some template tags. And then within here I can put whatever I want, just regular CSS. And let me start out by saying display flex. And that should be good just to begin with, so we can see what's going on. So we have a Jumbotron, and what we want to do now is we do want to take a look at, let's remove this. Let's go ahead and did we import that as, yeah. So we're going to import this inner now. So we're going to say import inner. From where we're going to import it? Well, styles, right? Jumbotron. And then down here, we're just going to say inner. And then let's just say hello again. And let's see what we get. Parsing error. Hello again, there we go. And if you open up the DevTools, and let's take a look. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. You see this here, Jumbotron? Well, it's giving me the inner. And also, good way to demonstrate this, get rid of macro. Let's see. There, look, you see? Doesn't give you the nice names, so that's why you want the macro one. So we'll put that back, and there we are. Okay, as you see, we're back to normal. We have Jumbotron inner, and I really find this is helpful for debugging. Let's see what console errors we've got. Okay, yeah, they're gone. Cool. So next, I think it's time we start building out a Jumbotron, right? This is what we are here for. So with the inner, that's basically just some styles that I have deemed necessary. The styles can be pretty much anything you want, but this is how Netflix is going to work. Now, you don't have to follow along with the styles. Feel free to just go grab this off GitHub, because the styles take like a lot of the time to write. And basically, they don't really say anything. Like here, I'm just saying, okay, justify content, space between, and then we'll say max width 1111. Now I wonder if it's helpful from your perspective if you can see both. So let me just put this on the left side right now so you can see what we're building in real time. Okay, so we're back. Right, this is how we're going to do this. One other thing is with style components you can pass props, and I guess that's expected with Beam React, but let's go ahead and do it. There's not much to style components, in all honesty. You do style dot and then just basically tell it what you want, and then if you look inside the console, I'll pull this up. I need to get rid of this here so you can see it better. Let's make the console just a little bit smaller. There we go. So you see here it's a div, right? Well, let's make it a bit smaller. So it's a div right now, but currently if I go ahead and change this, let me just put that as a H1 just to be a bit silly and say, look, it's a H1. There you are, it comes as H1. You change that to a section, it comes as a section. So basically change that element to whatever you like. For this particular use case, we're going to be using a div. So I'll put that back to a div. That looks good. Cool. Close down the console. What we're going to do next is I'm going to show you how to pass a prop. So flex direction, let's say flex direction, and then to pass a prop I'm going to destructure out basically the prop that I'm passing. So I'm going to say $, open up some curly brackets, and then in here, so this is a bit nasty, right? Just to destructure you have to do that. That's not something I'm a huge fan of, but unfortunately you have to work with what you're given. So we have direction, and then what you want to do, say direction. And basically, if I now go to the inner, which is here, I can pass down whatever I like. We can test that in a second, but let's just finish this one out. So I'm not a huge fan of writing all this CSS because it's not a CSS course. But you know, just bear with me with the CSS. Again, you can skip these parts and they will be timestamped. So flex direction column. So that's the inner done, and you can see it's moved. You can see. Let's go ahead and have a look. So the flex direction, the reason I've done that is because generally when you're on the Netflix homepage, you either have the image to the left or to the right. So if we just take a quick look at this once more. So you see here we have the Tiger King guy, he's on the right. I want to switch that to the left for the next Jumbotron. So this right here is a Jumbotron. On the next one I want to switch him to the left and the text on the right. So how do we do that? Well, we can pass a prop to this, and that's why, or at least one of the features of our style components, which is one of my favorite ones. So what did we call that? We called it direction, right? So let's just copy it. Go ahead, inner, pass direction, and we can pass direction. Now we don't have direction here, right? So let's go up to the Jumbotron, get rid of the console because it's a bit annoying, and we'll say direction, and if no direction gets passed, I'm just going to default it to a row. Now this is a compound component of somewhat, and I'm just going to zoom out just a little bit. With compound components, if you haven't watched my video, I do recommend that. It goes into more detail, but I like to be able to have a component like Jumbotron here. What I like to do is to give the ability to the user to pass anything down they want, and I'll honor that receiving object or value, whatever it may be. So if you pass down an object, I'm just going to say, okay, whatever it is, I'm going to apply it to the first one that comes in, and I'm just going to get the rest of the props, and that's how you do it, right there. So when you have the rest of the props, like right here, I'm going to put them on here, but we're not going to do that just yet. There's two other things we need to do. With a compound component, I always get the children. The children always come down. So here, there's no children, right? And that's not a mistake, that's just where we're currently at. I don't want to rush this because, as mentioned, it can kind of get a bit confusing. So what I'm going to do here now is I want to encapsulate all the Jumbotrons. So we're going to have 3 because that's what we honored in the Jumbotron.json. If we go to Jumbotron.json, you see the fixture has 3. So we want to map over these, right, or loop over these. So I'm just going to say container. Well, you're probably shouting, yeah, but container doesn't exist. It doesn't exist yet. And there's a few things we want to do. First thing is import that Jumbotron data. So it's a Jumbo data from, well, where did we get that from? Fixtures, right? And just call it Jumbo. Jumbo data is not being used. You see with a little squiggly, and that's fine. But now we can go ahead and say jumbo.map. And for each item that comes down in the map, we can iterate through, do some magic, and I like to take a good guess as to what I'm going to have within here. So I'm going to say Jumbotron. And this is a bit weird because it's saying here, I want to use a Jumbotron, but using .container. What the hell is .container? Well, bear with me a second. Each item that we have in the Jumbotron has, let's see, where did it go? Where did it go? There. It has an ID, so we're going to use that as the key. And these are all unique. And with React, you know by now that you have to pass a key to a iteration element. So we're going to say item.id. So we have that. Now if we jump back in here, you see we have the direction, so we can use this to basically, well, go left or go right. So let's check it. So we have the direction, we'll say item.direction, and there we go. So you see here it's expecting some children. So let's just say hello and see where we currently stand. These do not exist, which is good. So you attempted to import fixtures jumbo which falls outside the project. Yes, I did, because I've got 2 dots. Cool. More errors. Yeah, Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm going to ignore you for now, because I probably know why this is erroring. If not, then just probably should quit this recording. If I'm still here, you know, we fixed it. So let's continue. We are, where are we? Jumbotron. Okay, this is the component here. So I'm calling Jumbotron.container. Well, that's going to fail because it doesn't exist. What does exist is we just have a default, and it takes in the children. But what we have to do is we have to go with a container. So say Jumbotron.container equals function Jumbotron. Okay, I need to copy this because I'm going to butcher that spelling. Container, give me the children and the rest props, because I'm going to honor anything you give me. I'm going to say return. I'm going to get a container, which, by the way, what I'm returning here is a style component. We don't have it yet, but whatever the user gives us, the rest of the props, we want to pass down the children. Okay, that looks good. This is telling me, Carl, this does not exist. Okay, so I'm just going to say, give me the container from the styles. Well, that doesn't exist either, so you're going to have to go ahead and create it. Okay, as you wish, we'll go ahead and we'll create those styles. So the container, people ask me this too. They generally say, let's see, why have you called it container? Why is it called item? Why is it called image? Now this is just all my brain saying this sounds like a container. It's going to contain some items, so I'm just going to call it container. And we can call this container. And by the way, with style components, you don't have to pass anything. Like, you don't have to put in any CSS, which is cool. So we can just leave this empty. Now the reason I'm leaving this empty at this particular stage is I'm going to need it for the responsiveness. Right now I don't really need it, but as you see here, this is our compound component. This is right here what encapsulates compound components. That's pretty much it. You can, I don't know, it's just nicer. I mean, you could just create Jumbotron container in its own component, but we can just utilize this one file for our component that has, you know, many different use cases. The great thing about compound components is that a user can just use what they want. Now, if they don't want something from the Jumbotron, you can just remove it. And granted, you can do that with regular components, but I kind of like this. It's like, here's a tree of all the components you can use for Jumbotron. It's quite nice. So what we need now is we do need some information, and we have the item coming down. So let's just see. So we can say item.title, item.subtitle, item.image, item.alt. Okay, it seems, let's click off that. Okay, we're still running. Let's see, Jumbotron. So we have hello again, right? So why is this not coming through? You know, I've specified this should come through right now, and I've given you the Jumbotron. Why is it not coming through? Well, what do you think it is? You see here, it's doing absolutely nothing. It's just saying hello again. But if I pass the children, it's going to get everything in here and just basically render it. There we go. We have information. So as you see, it's a bit of a mess. Nothing's going on. We've just got all this information. It doesn't look great. Just ignore it for now. It's not going to get a design award anytime soon. But this is where the styles come in. So next we basically take the Jumbotron. I'm going to call this Jumbotron.title. Jumbotron.title is going to get rid of the p tag. And then we need a subtitle, so I'm just going to call this one subtitle. subtitle, and I'm going to take everything from here, get rid of the p tag once more. Cool, that looks good. It's going to error, I imagine. This one here, this is going to be a good learning experience because you can pass in, you see here how we pass in like, you know, the child. You could have passed this as like subtitle text equals this as a prop. This one I'm just going to pass a prop and just say item.image, and it's going to have an alt tag item.alt. And that looks good for now. Now I want to separate out the image and I want to separate out the title. So I want something on the left and something on the right. Now you can do this with Flex, but I always find a nicer way to do it is just to wrap it in some sort of div. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to call it pane, because it's a pane in the backside, and this is the only way that I generally find is the quickest, and it works quite nice. So basically here that's going to say this one's going to be on the left, this one's going to be on the right, and we have the direction to flip the reverse using Flex. So as you see, we're going to keep getting a bunch of errors, but if we just jump back now into index.js, this is where we can start building this stuff out. Now with compound components it gets fairly repetitive, so you can just go ahead and copy this and say pane, that's a pane, and then in here you just want to switch this out because it's just going to be using style components. And again we can do this with the title, and I'm hitting Command D, and that allows me to select all these, you know, names. Just be careful when you do that because it may go down and go up and start replacing a bunch of other stuff. So I'm just going to get the subtitle because that's what we expected, right? And I'll just quickly reiterate that by showing you. You see here we need to create the title, subtitle, pane, all this stuff, and even image, and that's going to be the compound component. The compound component is then going to grab the style component, and as you see it's giving me the red squiggly lines, and it's saying here is not defined, doesn't exist. Next one is different, so be careful with this one. This is an image. Now the image isn't going to return any children, right? As you see here, don't return any children. So I'm just going to get rid of the children. We don't need the children here. Just give me the rest of the props, and then replace subtitle with image. Cool. As you see here, I nearly messed up. Didn't call this one image. Okay, so we have all the red swigglies. So the red swigglies is what we now need to fix. Now what I want to do here is I basically want to say give me all the style components that I'm going to end up creating. So inner, pane, title, subtitle, image. We don't need that. We have duplicates, so we have container, inner, pane, title, subtitle, image. Now let's take a look in here. This is where it gets to the point where we have to write the styles, and as I said, the styles aren't the most exciting, so you can follow along if you wish. I'm going to try go through the styles fairly quickly. So like with this one, pane, I'll probably go through the styles to begin with, and then as we go on I'm going to just do them quickly because people will get sick of seeing the styles. So the pane, right, I said the pane has to be 50-50 because I'm going to have something on the left, something on the right. And then it's going to be a div. The title is going to be a h1, so we can just grab this. I'm just going to get rid of that for now, call that title. It's going to be h1. We can just get the application so it doesn't look in such a state that it's broken. h2 for the subtitle, and then we can fill these out. Image, well, we're just going to change the semantic element. C, call that image, and then this one, set image. Cool. Okay, so it looks like we've got some content on the screen. We have everything in here now exported. Now, we did request, let's see, so you see here it's getting a Jumbotron. Well, Jumbotron's going to be a default, and that's fine, but I kind of want to wrap it in here. And what I mean by that is, this is just giving me inner, and what is inner? Well, inner is just a div. I'll pull this aside. So we don't have any images yet, which is a bit strange because we have passed the image there. So let's open up the DevTools. Do we have the tag image is unrecognized? That's fine. So this is where the debugging comes in, and this is good because we can click into root. We have a container, right? So we have a container, which is that. Then we have a row, and you see how we're using the elements here. Siri going off. Siri needs to be quiet. So here, direction, row, and it's giving us all the information for the classes. And then we have a pane, so left, right, cool. Pull this aside. I'm just going to put this back down. You see how it goes left? And you get these weird names from the style components. And you can soon to edit these, I believe, in Chrome. But left, right, so there's nothing in the right. And you see it's giving me image, and image doesn't exist as a semantic element. So we jump back in, let's go down, we've got image here. Well, image does not exist, so we need to change that to img. And then we should get images. There we go, perfect. So have the images, that's good. Close down the DevTools. And now we need to make at least these jumpertrons look somewhat normal. So let's go ahead and do the styles. So the image, I'm just going to say I want to give you a max width of 100 and a height of auto. The container, I'm just going to add some responsiveness in here. I don't want you to worry about it too much just yet. Actually, no, we'll come to that because I think it makes more sense to show you that as to why we're adding it for a mobile responsive. Most of these styles you can just get from netflix.com. Let's put the line height to normal. And so media, max width at 600. I want the font size to go down to 18 pixels. Okay, so the title, I expect you to be bigger. You've got more of a responsibility to demonstrate what we're trying to sell, which is a bunch of series of a guy with a crazy tiger and a crazy mind. So max width 600, font size we're going to go with 35. Cool, let's see where we're at. Did you work? I'm not too sure it worked. I wasn't. Oh yeah, there we go. Watch out for that little nasty semicolon right there. Cool. Okay, so that looks somewhat good. We need to do the pane next. So the pane is 50%, and once it's 50%, let's say okay, if you have a media of a max width of 1000 pixels, and then a width of 100, padding says 0.45, text align center. Cool. Let's see. Okay, that looks somewhat readable. I'm trying to think if we should wrap our items. So when we look at, oh, we can barely see. Let's move this over. So you see this grey box here? Well, it's going to be hard to get that without encapsulating this within something. So I'm going to wrap it, but I'm not going to expose this item. I just want something that's going to give me the grey box and, well, the grey border, that is. So the way to do that, let's pull this over. Let's demonstrate this. So this is what you can take advantage of. You don't have to expose this to the user, but here I'm going to change this to item. Now item doesn't exist, but we can pull that in, and then we'll just go back to giving inner. And inner is like, the way I like to see this is I'll have a div that's a width of 100 and it goes across the entire page, but then within inner I'm going to lock that at maybe 1000 pixels, and then I can make some CSS modifications to this, such as a full width border. So we have an item in there, so now we have to come in here and create it ourselves. So let's export const item. I'm going to make that to be a style.div. Yep, that's right. Once we have the style.div, let's say display flex, border bottom 8 pixels solid 222, not currency. Padding 50, 5 color white, overflow hidden. Now we do have a nasty looking page right now, but you can see we have the border. but obviously the color's gone white. It is there. So what I want to do now is, well, it's not fairly tricky to be honest. What we want is to create a global style. So what is a global style, you may ask? Well, global style is generally something like what you apply to the body or you apply elsewhere. But within Style Components, because we're using that sort of technology, there's no point in us just creating a .css and including it. So how we're going to do this is we're going to create a file called global styles. Let's call it globalstyles.js. Now I'm just going to import it in here right at the top. I'm just going to do import. Let's say global styles equals from global styles. And then what you can do is we can create a fragment. So if you're not used to fragments, let me show you what happens. So if I just chuck in this global style, firstly it's going to error because it doesn't exist in terms of the default export, and then it's going to error because we don't have a fragment. And it's saying right here, adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Did you want a JSX fragment? Yes, okay. I'll take one. So we can put this here and bring that down, and it allows us to render that out. So what you want to do with the global style, you essentially want to come into your globalstyles.js, go import, create global style from Style Components. Cool. And let's do export default global styles equals create global style. Just like Style Components, dump your CS right in there. Let's see, what's this saying? Global styles is not defined. It's fine. Actually, no, we don't want to. Ooh, let me see. Actually, no, let's do a const. Export const. And then we do HTML body. Font family, I'm just going to get that font family because I cannot type that. And then I want to anti-alias the text, and this just gives a nice smoother look on certain browsers. And in the background, I'm just going to say background color, let's just say black. And then for the default color, we'll say 3. And there we go. Font size 16, nice base font size. So it's going to give us an error because here we're doing a default, and I'm going to have to use a named one now, because I chose to use a variable. And there we go, Jumbotron. And does it work responsively? Yes, it does. Nice. Woo. It's good, right? That is good. So we have some, let's see. You know what? You see you got the border here. Let's see. You've got like an annoying border somewhere. Somewhere on here it's giving you an annoying border what's not letting your what's it not letting? It's not letting you have that full experience of, I don't want the border. Somehow the browser's applying some nonsense to your styles, ruining the experience for the user and this beautiful design that a developer's given you. So what you want to do is go ahead and do import normalize, something we pulled in, and that's it. Get rid of that annoying border. Refresh. Not annoying border. Margin padding. There it goes. Perfect. By the way, as you see, in previous videos that I've done, you'll see I'm a huge fan of ESLint and Prettier, and at this point, you know, it gets kind of hairy and messy when you're just lining stuff up like this, and it's not too nice. So a nice little utility I've got, it's called install ESLint. Again, it's on my GitHub. It will be in the description. Ping me on Twitter for it, @CalHadwin if you wish. How it works, blah blah blah. Basically, just watch this. If I say install ESLint, it's going to say what package manager you're using. Pick the one appropriate to what you're using. In this case, it's Yarn. Which ESLint Prettier config do you prefer? I like JSON, and I'll say a max width of 120. ES5 we're using, so hit number 2. You don't have to do this, but I like ESLint and Prettier to format my code, and it will automatically do this on save. So once this installs, you should see 2 files come into this particular folder. Not source, and it's installing, and we'll see. So it's installing now. There we go, it's nearly done. We should get it shortly. Hit refresh, it's not there yet. We'll be back in a second. Oh no, is it?